Hey, what's up? You need to practice talking. There's a few reasons why. Let's start with this. Maybe you were like this as a kid. I would often get told by the teacher, it's certainly in report cards that, I talk too much in class, distracting others, etc., etc. I think a lot of students and kids get that when they're young. But now as an adult, I find myself talking much less than when I was younger. And it's probably because I'm less social than I was back then. It's much easier to be social then. And I mean, some days I'll have work days where I'm working remotely that I literally don't say a word. And that could be for a number of reasons, like just generally no meetings that day. Or there could be meetings, but there's no need for me to talk in those meetings. And it's just one where I'm listening to others. If there's no issues or no one-on-ones, if there's no stand-ups, then, there's no real need for me to talk. And this could be an issue. I feel like this could be an issue because I think using your vocal cords, warming them up, and using your tongue, because I know you use your tongue and the muscles around your tongue to talk, has got to be good for you in some ways. Similar to how you got to use your muscles to stay strong. I feel like there's something there. And yeah, I think practicing talking is good in that case, for that situation. And not necessarily that you just talk randomly or anything like that, but even just setting up a camera like this and just talking to the camera, I think is probably good in some ways. I mean, it's probably bad in some ways as well, but in terms of using your tongue, using your voice, I think is good. Now, something maybe more obvious why it's good to practice talking is, and a really good reason to audit the way you talk is you might catch yourself saying a lot. And when you really start to see it, it's really quite jarring, and you notice it a lot when other people do it as well. And so you can record yourself, you can watch it back, and you can audit yourself and see how many times you say the word because it's a filler word, right? It's a placeholder. You're just gathering your next thought. And so if you're able to remove that, when somebody talks, it just sounds much more fluid and just generally better, I think. And yeah, I don't think you get that without practicing talking. Also, sometimes you might forget a word, and it's most likely because it's just not in your active vocabulary. So you're not talking about the topics that would otherwise call upon that word. And so in the moment that you need it, you forget it. But if you're actively talking about different things, particularly that subject, then likely the next conversation you have that might require using a certain word, you'll have it ready to use. What else is there? Let's have a quick look. Oh, I guess another thing is when you talk and you watch yourself back, particularly with talking, is you can kind of see how you form sentences, how it comes across, what your kind of attitude or intonations are, and maybe you sound like not the nicest person, or maybe you sound like you got a bit of an attitude, and you can kind of self-correct. And communication is a big thing. Oftentimes the reason people don't get the things that they want is because they can't communicate what they're after correctly. And yeah, it's extremely important. It's extremely useful to be able to get across a point well, and to be able to formulate an idea and a thought and share that with others, and have that thought be full and complete. A slightly different thing, but on the similar topic of talking, is I remember in school that they would do speeches, and maybe they would have like 3-minute speeches. I can't remember if it was ever any longer than that. Maybe at max it would have been 5, I'd say, for me. Maybe it would have been longer for people that were in competitions, but I always remember it was so difficult to do, and I think I know why. I think partially because speeches were so few and far between. You might have 1, maybe 2 in a year. where you're standing in front of the whole class and maybe you're not on super personal terms with everyone, so you don't want to leave the wrong impression. And quite often, the setup is that you'd talk about things that maybe you weren't fully passionate about. And in the real world, that's rarely ever a real situation. You're usually talking about things that you know, things that you like, things that are easy. And I think that's possibly why speeches as a kid always felt so difficult, because now it's so easy to talk about something for a very long time. Actually, another reason why it might have been hard is because when you're younger, you have less experience and maybe less depth in the topics that you're talking about. Whereas now, when you're older, you have a bit more experience. Maybe you can talk about different angles and different perspectives of topics more fluidly. But yeah, I think that's a few reasons why it's good to practice talking. And I would encourage others to practice talking more, particularly those that aren't that social, that might not talk as much. Because I know there are people that are very extroverted and social, and they have social gatherings, and that's a great opportunity to talk. But maybe some people aren't into those situations. Maybe they're more introverted. But I do think talking in general is good and likely healthy, I would say. Thanks for watching. See you next time.